the Miller family went bankrupt. To get funds, Mom and Dad sent me to Robert Sterling as his plaything. Instead, he threw me to 10 men and had me abused. To escape that hellhole, I cut off my own wrist and escaped in the rainy night, risking death. I ran home, holding my severed wrist, covered in wounds, and barely clothed. Dad saw my wretched state, red-eyed, and swore he would personally kill those beasts. Mom, tears streaming down her face, cupped my wrist and frantically contacted the best doctors. But that very night, I heard Mom's shocked voice outside the hospital room. "Did you already call the Sterling family, asking to send Eleanor back to that den of wolves?" Dad nodded indifferently, devoid of emotion. "If we don't send Eleanor back, where will the funds for Isabel to participate in the international fashion design competition come from? Before finding Isabel, we treated Eleanor quite well. Now it's time for her to repay us for raising her. She came running back after suffering so little. We must have spoiled her too much. Besides, she is this defiled, she doesn't deserve to be a part of the Miller family anymore. She broke a wrist and lost her ability to resist. The Sterling family will likely be more satisfied. All women are the same, once they get a taste of men, they can't get enough. Don't look at Eleanor throwing a fit now. After she's gone without for a while, who knows, she might even thank us for sending her back to the Sterling family. When Isabel wins the international fashion design competition, we'll choose a gift for Eleanor, consider it compensation for her." Tears streamed out, exceptionally fiercely. I desperately covered my mouth, not daring to make a sound. So the parental love I had always believed in was just a deception. My heart was bleeding, and despair engulfed me. This cruel family affection, wrapped in falsehood, I didn't want it anymore. Dad's low voice came from outside, "Throw Eleanor's wrist away. When you go in later, remember to tell Eleanor that her wrist has been detached for too long and is completely necrotic. There's no way to reattach it." The doctor hesitated, "But Mr. Miller, Miss Miller is our country's top fashion designer. If she loses her hand, it would be a devastating loss to the design world. Just throw it when I tell you." "What's with all the nonsense?" Dad said, his voice suppressed and furious, to the doctor. "If Eleanor had her hand and entered the design competition, could the champion still be our Isabel? If Isabel doesn't win the champion, how can I compensate my daughter who suffered while away for so long and endured so much hardship? As her twin sister, shouldn't Eleanor yield to Isabel? Furthermore, she's returning to the Sterling family soon. The Sterling family can support her for a lifetime. What does she have to worry about? Also, don't give her any anesthetic later, and use the thickest suturing needle. Without agonizing pain, she won't know she's wrong." The doctor had no choice but to agree to Dad's orders. The door was pushed open. I was curled up in the blanket, the tearing pain in my heart making it almost impossible to breathe. I looked at Dad, pleading desperately, "Dad, please ask the doctor to find a way to save my hand, okay? I really love design, and I really don't want to go back to the Sterling family." Dad's eyes turned red, and he sat down by my bed, choked with sobs. "Eleanor, amputation is unavoidable. Your hand has been detached for too long. There's truly no way to reattach it. Do you know how much Dad's heart aches? If I could, Dad would rather bear this pain for his precious daughter. There's no anesthetic at the hospital now. When they stitch it up later, you'll have to endure it. If you really can't bear it, bite Dad's clothes. Dad will hurt with you." He couldn't continue speaking, turning his head and covering his face, wailing. Mom glanced at him with a complex expression, took my hand, and said to me apologetically, "Mom and Dad specifically found the best doctor. You won't have any after effects. And Mom has found another good family for you. They promised you, they won't dislike you for being a half a cripple and will take good care of you for the rest of your life." As she said this so earnestly, my whole body hurt as if being torn apart. I looked at her in disbelief, unable to understand why my beloved mom could act so well when facing me. I looked at her with agonizing pain, my voice almost trembling as I asked, "Mom, I just came back, and you're already so eager to drive me away?" Mom, feeling guilty, quickly said, "No, Eleanor, Mom is doing this for your own good. Isabel is at home preparing for the competition, and this competition is very important to her. It's really inconvenient for you to stay at home. Besides, you've already married someone, staying at home will invite gossip. The new family's conditions aren't bad, going there isn't a disgrace to you. What more are you unsatisfied with?" Mom spoke cold words in a gentle tone, chilling my heart to the core. I suppressed my inner grief and asked Mom, that new family, won't they happen to be named Sterling?" Mom's expression immediately became flustered, and she quickly denied, No. The hellhole I escaped from at the cost of my life, now my own parents were going to send me back there with their own hands. My heart ached so much I couldn't breathe. I never thought that just to compensate Isabel, the mom and dad who once loved me would personally push me into the fire. I didn't understand. Clearly, 20 years ago, they abandoned Isabel because they couldn't afford to raise 2 daughters. Why now did they need to use my life to atone for their mistakes? At that moment, my body and heart seemed to die completely along with mom and dad's lies. The doctor looked at me with compassion and said, "Miss Miller, we are going to start stitching. Because there is no anesthetic, you might have to endure it." After saying this, he felt uneasy and didn't dare to look at me anymore. The needle pierced through my skin, flesh, and bone. Even though I bit my lips until they bled, I still couldn't control the final agonizing cries from escaping. Mom's heart ached, and tears streamed down her face. She clutched her chest tightly, burying her head in Dad's arms and wailing. Dad couldn't bear to watch the scene either and sharply turned his head away. And as I watched them put on this performance, the despair in my heart swallowed me whole, leaving nothing behind. Before the pain that made life worse than death could fade, the commotion outside came through. It was Robert Sterling bringing people to catch me. Robert Sterling outside the door looked at Dad with a sneer. "Mr. Miller, I'm not going to hold you accountable for tormenting me when I hadn't made my fortune. But now that you've borrowed my money and taken my collateral, the Miller family's Eleanor, isn't that a bit out of line?" Dad couldn't afford to offend the current Robert Sterling, so he could only bow and scrape, smiling fawningly. "That rebellious daughter ran back herself. It has nothing to do with us. Now we have her under Mr. Sterling's control, you can just take her back. Knowing that you want her to vent your anger, we haven't arranged treatment for her severed wrist, nor have we given her anesthetic. She's now half a cripple, and even if you take her back and torment her, she won't be able to resist anymore. Don't worry, since we've given our daughter to you, we are a family now. We will think of these small matters very thoughtfully for you, Mr. Sterling." Robert Sterling's expression froze for a barely perceptible moment. A flicker of heartache crossed his features. He looked over worriedly through the hospital room window, just catching sight of my terrified face upon hearing his arrival. In an instant, unexplained anger surged into his heart. "Miss Miller still has 2 New York ways out, that's why she has such a fiery temper. I heard the Miller family's family reputation has always been very strict. How could you tolerate a woman this defiled like Eleanor returning to the Miller family?" Dad quickly flattered Robert Sterling, following his words. "In the past, she would definitely be utterly disowned and shamed. Now, it's because of Mr. Sterling's face. Haven't you had enough fun with her yet? But don't worry, Mr. Sterling, from now on, the Miller family will only have 1 daughter, Isabel. If Eleanor dares to come back, we will definitely have someone kick her out." I stared blankly at Dad. I couldn't believe such words would come from the relatives who loved me for 20 years. Robert Sterling smiled with satisfaction. "Mr. Miller's performance satisfies me. I will provide sufficient funds for your daughter Isabel to participate in this international fashion design competition and will also ensure that your Miller Group has sufficient funds to operate smoothly. But the condition is, I want everyone to see the private photos of Eleanor and those 10 men right now." With that, Robert Sterling opened the door and walked in. He smiled gently at me, but it sent chills down my spine. He touched my face and said softly, "The little canary has learned to escape the cage. You will pay the price for your mischief." As soon as he finished speaking, the doctor nearby, as well as Mom and Dad, received notifications on their phones. They all opened their phones, and my scandalous private photos popped up glaringly. Mom covered her face and cried, while Dad looked at me with disgust. Even outside the doorway, a crowd of people suddenly gathered, pointing at me and whispering, "So that's Eleanor, the one known as the pure girl of the design world. Who knew she was this wild and played around this much in private, that even 10 men weren't enough for her? Who knows how she got her reputation as a design genius? She probably slept her way to the top. Miss Miller, how much for a night with you? With so many men here, we can definitely satisfy you." Lewd laughter echoed through the hospital room. Countless wicked gazes were cast upon me, as if they had already stripped me bare. I felt like I was standing naked before everyone. Immense shame completely overwhelmed me. Why is a slut pretending to be a saint? She's all covered up now, but won't she have to strip later anyway? Miss Miller doesn't care how many people are here. Why don't we have some fun right now? Enough. Enough. Get out, all of you. Mom finally couldn't bear it anymore. She blocked the people frantically taking photos of me with their phones, trying to push them out like a madwoman. But Dad stepped forward, held Mom back tightly, and said to her in a low voice, "What are you doing? Mr. Sterling will get angry like this, and Isabel's future will be ruined. That sentence seemed to remind Mom, and her movements to drive people away slowed down. Finally, she completely let Dad hold her back, silently enduring everything. Then, Dad turned to me in extreme anger. Eleanor, why are you giving Mr. Sterling that miserable look? It's just taking a few pictures of you, what's the big deal? Do you need to make that kind of face? If Isabel were here, she wouldn't be as clueless as you. All you think about is your own reputation all day long. It was Isabel again. Was it because I grew up with Mom and Dad and had enough love that I now had to use everything to compensate her? Mom and Dad, who once cherished me like a little princess held in the palm of their hand, had now become the devils pushing me into the abyss. My heart turned to ash, and tears of despair streamed down my face. I looked at Robert Sterling. Anyway, the Miller family only needs one daughter. Robert, you just want to get back at the Miller family by ruining me, right? Fine. Have it your way. With that, before anyone could react, I jumped off the bed, pushed open the window, and jumped down. Robert Sterling lunged at the window like a madman. Eleanor. Mom couldn't bear the shock and immediately fainted in Dad's arms, who was shocked beyond belief. But I didn't die. The lawn and low floor only caused me to fall and suffer head injuries and a broken leg. After I was rescued, Dad slapped me across the face. Grown bold, haven't you? Eleanor, you actually dare to threaten your parents with death now. I gave you this life, you owe me your life forever. Now we just ask you to do something for the Miller family, and you're being so dramatic. It's too much. Robert Sterling walked to my bedside, grabbed my neck, making me almost suffocate. He looked at me with hatred. Eleanor, I bought your life. If you dare to die without my order, I guarantee I will make you suffer 10,000 times worse than death. I looked at him numbly, but it inexplicably made him feel more pain. Mom was also full of disappointment. She looked at me resentfully. Eleanor, you can't be so selfish. Did you think about your sister when you jumped? You enjoyed the joy of being raised at home for 20 years for her. Now it's time for you to compensate her. Without Mr. Sterling's financial support, how can Isabel design beautiful clothes and win the trophy at the International Fashion Design Competition? You're already a cripple now. Are you going to make your sister become this disgusting mess like you? You really deserve to be abused by 10 men again. Mom's words pierced my heart like needles. But my heart had already become numb from the pain. I couldn't feel anything anymore. Just then, a voice suddenly came from outside. Mom, don't talk about my sister like that. Sister just hasn't found the pleasure in 10 men yet. Once she finds it, she won't be like this. It was my twin sister, Isabel, speaking. When Mom and Dad gave birth to us, their company faced an unprecedented crisis and could only afford to raise one child. Out of necessity, the Y had to send Isabel to the orphanage. Unfortunately, the orphanage was later relocated, and Isabel went missing. It wasn't until a few years ago that a girl who looked exactly like me, claiming to be Isabel, came to reunite with the family. When Mom and Dad saw that face, they immediately cried hysterically and quickly acknowledged Isabel. From then on, to compensate her, they treated her exceptionally well, almost giving her their lives. But they never thought that while they were treating her so well, they had completely forgotten about me. Eleanor, if it weren't for you back then, we wouldn't have lost Isabel. You owe her so much, you can't repay it in a lifetime. Seeing Isabel's arrival, Mom and Dad's harsh words from before vanished. They greeted her with heartache. Our Isabel is still the kind one. You are the one who brought happiness to this family. You've sacrificed so much for us and asked for nothing, unlike some people who contribute nothing to this family and ruin its reputation. Indecent, promiscuous, she's ruined the Miller family's family reputation. Dad and Mom spoke back and forth, then turned to Robert Sterling, smiling cheerfully. Mr. Sterling, this is our most beloved little daughter, smart and talented, definitely the best choice for a wife, unlike some people who are naturally promiscuous. In her private photos and videos, who knows how much she enjoyed it, and yet she pretends to be unwilling here. They spoke as if no one else was there, presenting a harmonious scene, as if I had suddenly become irrelevant. But just before, I was the little princess held in the palm of their hand. They would say that the Miller family was blessed by fate to have a design genius like me, that I was the greatest treasure God granted them. But why now? Robert Sterling's frowning for a moment. Then he looked at Isabel softly and nodded. Isabel saw Robert Sterling's handsome face, and her face immediately flushed faintly. She shyly offered a polite greeting to Robert Sterling. Robert Sterling looked at her with satisfaction, nodded, and said, "The wedding is set for 3 days from now. From now on, the Sterling family and the Miller family will be united by marriage." Isabel's visible joy was evident, and in between, she didn't forget to glance at me smugly. The challenge and smugness in her eyes were clearly visible. "Mr. Sterling, since I'm getting married soon, can I be alone with my sister and have a heart-to-heart talk?" she said sweetly to Robert Sterling. Robert Sterling agreed. To allow Isabel to have a heart-to-heart talk with me, everyone in the hospital room voluntarily left. Seeing Mom and Dad's retreating backs, my heart ached so much I almost shed tears. I lowered my eyes and silently asked myself, "Mom and Dad, if I had really died this time, would you have regretted it even a little?" But no one answered me. Only Isabel, who had dropped her obedient mask, looked at me with a sneer. Only the two of us were left in the room. Isabel smugly took out some design drafts and said to me, "Sister is truly worthy of being known as a talented woman in the design world. I just copied your drafts and received so much praise. No wonder Sister loves designing clothes so much. This feeling of being showered with attention is simply amazing." I didn't want to pay attention to her, but in her hand were the fruits of my labor, the result of countless sleepless nights. I wanted to rush forward and snatch them, but she skillfully took an almost imperceptible step back. I, already severely injured, almost stumbled and fell. Isabel laughed happily and smugly. "Sister's wretched state is really amusing. You must be very sad now. But my favorite thing is to see Sister sad. Why could you enjoy so much love and wealth since birth, while I could only live a hard life in the orphanage? I'm resentful. I want to steal everything from you. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I took a fancy to Robert Sterling. That's why I had Mom and Dad send you to be his plaything. Only then could I appear pure and undefiled, and only such a woman could capture the heart of the head of the Sterling family. But I didn't care about any of that, I only cared about my design drafts." Seeing my extremely anxious appearance over the drafts, Isabel became even more smug. "Sister, there's only one way to make Robert Sterling forever mine, and that is you die." I looked at her indifferently, a faint hatred spreading between us. "Isabel, I never wanted to fight with you over Robert Sterling. If you like him, just marry him yourself. We are full siblings. Why do you have to harm me like this?" At that moment, Isabel's expression became bizarre and twisted. "Eleanor, you're not so foolish as to still think I'm your real sister, Isabel, are you? The real Isabel died long ago. Do you know how much effort I put into getting plastic surgery to look like her? Do you know how much I suffered? But as long as I can take your place and become the Miller family's only little princess, it's all worth it." I was so shocked I could barely speak. After a long pause, I squeezed out words through clenched teeth. "Aren't you afraid I'll make these secrets of yours public?" Isabel burst into wild laughter. "Eleanor, do you think your mom and dad will believe what you say? Or do you think Robert Sterling will believe it? Wake up. You've always been an outsider in this family who could be kicked out anytime, anywhere. Why should they believe the words of an outsider? Oh, and Eleanor, do you know why I'm telling you all this? Because in my eyes, you're already a dead person who can't say anything." As she spoke, she suddenly fell backward, letting out an extremely tragic scream. "Sister, please don't kill me. I won't fight with you for Mom and Dad and Mr. Sterling anymore." Hearing the noise, Mom and Dad and Robert Sterling rushed in. Dad was in front, and as soon as he entered, he slapped me across the face twice without a word. "Eleanor, how could you be so vicious? This is your own sister." Before I could explain, Robert Sterling kicked me in the chest, and I vomited blood. Robert Sterling glared at me angrily. "Eleanor, a lowly servant used by Sterling's employees, how dare you lay a hand on the future mistress of the Sterling family? Do you have a death wish?" Isabel curled up in Mom's arms, looking at me pitiably, and said, "Actually, it's not Sister's fault. She's injured and her emotions are unstable. It's normal. As long as Sister is happy, it's okay if I'm a little hurt." Mom hugged Isabel tightly, her eyes filled with hatred fixed on me. I looked at everything before me, and 1,000 words suddenly froze on my lips. Under their gaze, I suddenly laughed. The smile was desperate and desolate, my empty eyes causing a slight tremor and a momentary panic in the hearts of Dad, Mom, and Robert Sterling, who were staring intently at me. They looked at me nervously, and I looked back at them, tears in my eyes, saying nothing, yet seeming to have said everything. Finally, Robert Sterling awkwardly avoided my gaze and found an excuse for himself. "Eleanor, you stay in this hospital room and reflect carefully. You are not allowed to go anywhere. For the wedding 3 days from now, I will have someone pick you up. You will need to serve Isabel as the new mistress of the Sterling family." With that, they filed out, warmly and anxiously inquiring about Isabel's condition, not even sparing a final glance back at me. But none of that mattered to me anymore. After they left, I took out the phone from under the pillow. it's time. Come pick me up. On the day of the wedding, Robert Sterling sent someone to find me. Although it was a joyful day, Robert Sterling was inexplicably restless the entire time. Even when Isabel clung to his arm, pouting, he wouldn't pay attention. He just kept taking out his phone from time to time, waiting for something. Gee, but what was he waiting for? Robert Sterling himself couldn't say clearly. My mom and dad were the same, they were restless. Until a message arrived on Robert Sterling's phone. Mr. Sterling, something's wrong. The hospital caught fire. Miss Miller is trapped inside, things are looking bad. What did you say? Mom and Dad and Robert Sterling shouted almost simultaneously. Yes, Mr. Sterling, the firefighters say there's a charred body inside, it's very likely Miss Miller. Who allowed you to curse my daughter like that? If anything happens to her, I will make you pay with your life. Dad's roar echoed through the room. The voice on the other end was terrified. Mr. Miller, please calm down. The nurses at the hospital have confirmed that only Miss Miller didn't escape. They said she refused to leave the fire. Dad couldn't hear the rest of the words. He stood there, his mind buzzing, and it took him a while to react. He didn't even say goodbye to Robert Sterling. He rushed out of the wedding venue directly and drove towards my hospital. What he didn't know was that Robert Sterling followed closely behind, leaving Isabel alone at the wedding venue, allowing everyone to watch the abandoned bride and whisper and laugh. In the car, Mom and Dad kept murmuring the same sentence. It's okay, Eleanor, she'll definitely be fine, she. Robert Sterling was also like that. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, forcing himself to say, Eleanor, what kind of trick are you playing now? Do you think this will make me worry about you? Absolutely not. When I find you, I will torment you twice as much. I'll make you pay the Miller family's debts. But by the time they reached the hospital building, huge black smoke billowed into the sky, and countless flames licked out from the windows towards the heavens. Mom almost couldn't stand steady. She stood beneath the towering flames, letting out a painful wail. My daughter, Isabel, who arrived shortly after, Russ head over and supported Mom, saying, Mom, don't worry, Sister's body was so defiled, going through such a big fire is like purifying her soul. This way she can also go to heaven. Mom, don't grieve for someone who isn't worth it anymore. Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, Mom threw her arm away with disgust, without a trace of the usual doting and gentleness. Get lost. My daughter doesn't need an outsider like you to comment on her. Don't think that just because we raised you for a few years, you can replace Eleanor's place in my heart. Don't forget, if it weren't for you, she wouldn't have suffered those things at all. What right do you have to say such sarcastic things? Isabel's face crumpled when Mom said that. She turned to Dad aggrievedly. Dad, Mom saying this makes me so sad. If Sister hadn't taken my place back then, how could I have been sent to the orphanage and suffered so much? After coming back, Sister even copied my things and almost ruined me a second time. Dad, At this moment, Dad was also staring blankly at the hospital building that was about to collapse from the fire, his face filled with grief. When he heard Isabel call him, his attitude was much gentler than Mom's. Isabel, your sister is already dead. You still talk about her like this, doesn't your conscience hurt? It was us who chose to abandon you back then. We know Eleanor's character best after all these years. She was already famous in the design world before you came back. Before you, who was she copying? Isabel was left speechless by Dad. Turning around, she just happened to see Robert Sterling, who had heard everything Dad said. Before she could speak, Robert Sterling's harsh gaze fixed on her. Your father has already said that my wife just died in the fire, so I advise you to think carefully before you speak to me, and think carefully before you address me. Otherwise, if you anger me, I will definitely make your life worse than death right now. That sentence forced back the word husband that Isabel was about to say. She silently lowered her head, concealing all the hatred in her eyes. My death was an unbearable blow to Mom and Dad. Mom even fainted on the spot and was in the hospital for a long time. After waking up, she kept silently crying. Dad also fell ill and suffered from vomiting blood from pain. When he went to the hospital for examination, the doctor couldn't find the cause, only saying it might be due to excessive grief. Robert Sterling consistently denied my death. He told Mom and Dad that he would never believe I was dead until he saw my body. After saying that, he clutched his chest, in such pain he could barely breathe. Just then, the doorbell rang. Robert Sterling opened the door and saw someone outside handing him an envelope. Robert Sterling opened the envelope and took out the folder inside. On it were written a few large words, evidence of Isabel's crimes. In an instant, Robert Sterling's eyes turned terrifyingly red. Mom and Dad's faces turned pale with shock. They looked on with gloomy expressions as Robert Sterling quickly tore open the documents and took out the papers with trembling hands. On the top of the stack, a face completely different from Isabel's appeared before their eyes. And on that photo, a bright red stamp was affixed, Isabel's true appearance. Following that were stacks of Isabel's plastic surgery documents, and the most shocking, Isabel's death certificate. Dad's face was ashen as he looked at all of this. Like Mom, he felt something collapse in his mind. But soon, he was interrupted by Mom's heart-wrenching cries, "My Eleanor. It turns out Mom misunderstood you all this time. Mom actually doted on a complete stranger as her own daughter for so many years, and my own precious daughter died such a tragic death." Dad was trembling all over, unable to stand steady. His legs gave way and he knelt on the ground. "It was us. We were the ones who forced our only precious daughter to her death. Eleanor, Mom and Dad are sorry," he wailed, beating his chest. "Especially thinking that he had personally sent me into the den of wolves, allowing so many people to abuse me and ruin my life." He vomited blood from the pain. He knelt on the ground and didn't hesitate to slap himself across the face. "What have I done to my own daughter?" Robert Sterling also almost lost his footing. He looked at the photo of a face completely unlike mine and squeezed out a sentence through clenched teeth, "Bring Isabel to me." When Isabel arrived, she didn't know what had happened. Hearing that Robert Sterling had called for her, she even put on pretty makeup happily and tried to approach him intimately, hooking onto his arm as soon as she saw him. Unexpectedly, he slapped her to the ground. "Don't come near me with that face. You don't deserve to have this face." Before she could react and put on her usual innocent expression, the frantic Mom, filled with endless remorse and pain, grabbed the heavy vase from the table and smashed it hard on her head. "It's all because of you, you wretch. You're not our daughter at all. You stole the identity of the deceased Isabel and came to our home and caused chaos. You forced us to personally kill our daughter. You beast." How desperate Eleanor must have felt in her heart when she refused to escape from the fire. Isabel was dazed from Mom's blow but still propped herself up and sneered, "Did I force you? Wasn't it clearly your own favoritism? As soon as you saw me, you treated me like a madwoman, even going so far as to strip Eleanor of everything to compensate me. You are the real culprits, yet you're pushing this onto me. You are the truly shameless ones." Before she finished speaking, the enraged Dad grabbed a chair and smashed it hard on her body. The sound of breaking bones echoed, and Isabel screamed. She fell to the ground, reaching out her hand to Robert Sterling, trying to cling to him as her only lifeline. "Mr. Sterling, save me. I truly love you. From the first moment I saw you, I fell for you. I promise, I will be a better wife than anyone else. And we have a common goal, which is to get back at the Miller family." Her answer was Robert Sterling's brutal kick. Isabel flew back and hit the wall hard. In extreme pain, she struggled to look up, and saw a cruel Robert Sterling she had never seen before. His eyes were vicious, but his tone was so sorrowful. "Isabel, you're dreaming. My wife will always be Eleanor and only Eleanor." To be honest, from the moment I saw her, I no longer wanted to get back at the Miller family. I just wanted her to love me, to submit to me. If I couldn't have all of that, I would rather destroy her. But only now do I realize that I used the wrong method to love her. I loved her to the core, yet I couldn't control myself from hurting her. And you are just a scheming rat who steals from the gutter, stealing identities, copying design drafts. Do you even deserve to say you love me? Since you drove Eleanor to this point in the Miller family, causing her parents to give her to me as a plaything, then you too will experience the pain Eleanor went through." With that, Robert Sterling had someone drag Isabel out and threw her among the men. "No. Don't. Mr. Sterling. I was wrong. I'll change from now on. Don't let them abuse me. You can't ruin me. I need to keep myself clean for a wealthy marriage. I don't want to go back to the impoverished life before. Mr. Sterling, please." Along the way, Isabel was screaming and begging for mercy, but Robert Sterling, Mom, and Dad were unmoved. Mom and Dad looked at the documents before them with grief, covering their faces and wailing uncontrollably. Only Robert Sterling stared intently outside the doorway, suddenly blurting out a sentence, "I don't think Eleanor is dead." Robert Sterling's guess was right. I didn't die. When the fire broke out, I had already been rescued and boarded a private jet, flying abroad to a small island. The person who saved me was Daniel Davies. He was my senior when I studied fashion design abroad. The first time I escaped from the Sterling family, I had already called him and told him I was willing to join his company, design clothes abroad, and never come back. He agreed. I just didn't expect so many twists and turns in between. When the plane landed at his airport, he saw me covered in wounds, and his eyes instantly turned red. He hugged me tightly, choked with sobs, unable to speak. "Eleanor, you've suffered." His embrace was so warm, finally allowing my tears to break free. I buried my face in his chest and wailed, as if to release all the grievances of those years. It wasn't until I was tired from crying that he carried me like a princess off the plane. He hired the world's top medical team to treat the injuries all over my body and my severed wrist. When he saw my hand, not only did he not show disgust, but he held my injured area and gently kissed it. "How much did you suffer when I wasn't by your side? But from now on, you never have to worry about any of this again, Eleanor. Even if you can no longer design, it doesn't matter. Between us, there is no transaction. Everything will be based on your happiness and comfort. I will always respect your choices." Having been controlled by mom and dad for so long, I was filled with unprecedented fear when I received his kindness. I said to him, "I didn't expect my mom and dad to give up on my treatment. When I said I wanted to join your company, I genuinely wanted to design clothes for you. I don't want to owe you, and I don't want you to think that I made up this lie to deceive you and plot for everything you have, just to escape from there." Before I finished speaking, Daniel Davies gently kissed my forehead. "My foolish girl, how could you think that? I've liked you for so long, but you were always too focused on design and never nautic. Ed, my affection for you. Now I finally have a chance to do something so insignificant for you. I'm too happy to feel anything else. How could I feel like you owe me anything? On the contrary, sometimes I really hope you would plot for something from me. Whatever it is, I can easily agree to it. I would only feel lucky that you're plotting against me, and luckily I have everything you're plotting for." He spoke softly, making my tears well up again. This is what it feels like to be loved and protected without reservation. I finally felt it. The days of receiving treatment on the small island were long. Daniel Davies always found ways to make me happy, hoping to help me overcome the pain of becoming disabled. Until that day, he suddenly gave me a gift box and mysteriously told me to open it and see. I followed his suggestion, and inside the gift box lay a hand. Before I could be surprised, Daniel Davies took my severed wrist and personally attached that hand for me. "This is the latest technology from abroad. With this prosthetic hand, you can use it as if it were your own hand, without any hindrance. Eleanor, this way you have a hand again, and you can return to the design you love once more." I tried to move it, and indeed, it was no different from my own hand. Especially when I picked up a drawing pen again, I cried uncontrollably. It turned out that the feeling of taking back control of everything was so wonderful. I threw myself into Daniel Davies's arms and poured out all my gratitude to him. "Daniel Davies, do you know? Actually, every time you saw me, I was exceptionally focused on my design, not because I didn't see you, but because I did see you." A girl's shyness made me unable to speak, and I could only hide my affection for you this way. "Daniel Davies, I love you. It started a long, long time ago." He was slightly stunned, then his eyes filled with tears of happiness. He held me back tightly, his voice unbelievably gentle. "That's wonderful. It turns out we've been in love all along. Eleanor, at this moment, I am very happy. Thank you." I also choked with sobs, leaning into his embrace. "Thank you too, Daniel Davies." With Daniel Davies's help, I returned to my beloved fashion design. Even with a different name, I still unexpectedly won the gold prize at the new International Fashion Design Competition. As I held the trophy, standing on the stage proudly receiving my honor, I never expected to have the chance to see my mom and dad, and Robert Sterling again in this lifetime. Years had passed, and they had aged a lot, their backs stooped, looking particularly awkward and uneasy. "Eleanor, Mr. Sterling was indeed right, you are alive, and we are relieved. What happened with Isabel, we were wrong. After you left, we were in constant pain and regret, unable to sleep, suffering from severe heart disease. You were the little princess held in the palm of our hand, yet no one expected everything to turn out this way." Their eyes welled up with guilt, but now mom and dad understand and know we were wrong. "Seeing you alive, mom and dad are truly happier than anyone else in the world. This time, mom and dad are here to take you home. Can we go back and live a happy life together again? This time, mom and dad will treat you twice as well." As they spoke, they reached out to take my hand. Unfortunately, this time I didn't rush forward happily as they remembered, but instead took an almost imperceptible step back, avoiding them. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, if you're finished speaking, please leave quickly." Mom and dad looked at me in astonishment, the pain in their eyes evident. "Eleanor, don't you want mom and dad anymore?" That sentence touched my heart, which had seemingly died, and made it ache again. I looked at them painfully, my voice hoarse. You were the ones who didn't want me back then. You sent me to Robert Sterling as a plaything for money, and in my most desperate moment, you pushed me back into the abyss. Even when my revealing photos were spread everywhere, you didn't stand by me. You even used the same language as them to humiliate me. You killed me once in the spiritual world, and forced me to death once in the physical world. If Daniel Davies hadn't cleared those private photos and videos online for me, if he hadn't saved me from the fire, I might be dead now. 2 deaths, even the deepest bond should be completely repaid. Now we owe each other nothing, and I naturally won't look back. Robert Sterling interrupted, Eleanor, I know I committed an unforgivable sin back then because of my anger. So I've been repenting all these years. I only hope you can give me a chance to make amends. It wasn't until something happened to you that I finally understood that the torment I put you through came from my love for you. Eleanor, please give me another chance, okay? I swear I will love you more and treat you better than anyone else in this world. My sneer had just landed. A large hand rested on my shoulder. Daniel Davies came to my side. He protected me firmly, looking at the people before him with a sneer. You're wrong. The person who loves Eleanor the most in this world has already appeared. Unfortunately, that person is not you. No one will believe words like expressing love through harm. Mr. Sterling, instead of desperately trying to win Eleanor back here, you should call back quickly and see if your company is still standing. Robert Sterling's face changed dramatically. He was about to argue, but phone calls interrupted him one after another. When he answered the phone, the panicked voice on the other end saying, Mr. Sterling, something's wrong. The company is bankrupt, plunged Robert Sterling into complete despair. He had climbed to that position in half his life, only to lose everything in an instant, falling back to the bottom. He couldn't bear the shock and immediately went mad. As the security guards dragged him away, he let out heart-wrenching cries of pain. This is retribution, retribution. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I owe you. I will definitely repay you in the next life. Mom and Dad looked at me, indifferent before them, their faces filled with sorrow, suffering uncontrollably. Eleanor, it seems you have found your own happiness. Mom and Dad were wrong. We killed our own 2 children with our own hands. It's right for you to hate us. Since you have made this decision, Mom and Dad will support your choice. You must be happy. Mom and Dad will atone where you can't see, forever. They walked away. But Dad collapsed from a stroke just as he reached the doorway. Without the Sterling family's support, the Miller family's downfall was inevitable. Mom would have to take care of Dad alone for the rest of their lives. And they would eventually live a life worse than death on a sickbed, repenting to me for the rest of their lives. I didn't spare them another glance and walked away, holding Daniel Davies' arm. Stepping outside the main entrance, the dazzling sunlight poured down, feeling warm and comforting on my skin. Looking at the azure sky, my nose tingled with sadness. Because I knew, from this moment on, the rainy night has finally ended.